Hi guys, and welcome back for part 2 of creating an event inside of Adobe Connect. Now in our last video we discussed all of the ins and outs of the first page in creating an event in the events module. We talked about adding images, we talked about adding information, as well as different tags. We took a look at the events catalog and we took a look at a completed event so you can kind of see what you're going to get once you finish this process. Now at the end of last video we ended with those event tags and tagging it out at the bottom. Where I really want to pick up, again, take a look at my screen right here, is the next thing we need to do is click next. However, I do want to bring us back to one thing before we click next. If we scroll up on this page, if you remember, we do have presentation, and we select the type of presentation that we have here, either live or on demand. Now, whatever you select is where it's going to take you to next. So if you selected your content library, the next page would list out all of the content in your content library. Alternatively, if you selected live, it's going to list out all of the meetings that you have in your meetings list. So again, this is going to be something where this actual selection here will affect what the next page is in this process. So we selected meetings because I do want to tie this to one of my meeting rooms. So if I go down to the bottom and I click next down here, what it will take me to, as I stated earlier, is my meetings list. So I do have a bunch of meetings within this list. All you need to do to associate one of these meeting rooms with your event, so the event knows where to redirect everyone once they log in, is just selecting the radio button next to the particular room that you want to use. Now, you can actually go and change this after the fact. Let's say that room accidentally gets deleted or you need to use a completely new room, as long as it stays under the same licensing type, meaning you're going from one meeting room to another meeting room. The caveat to this is you can't go from a meeting room to a seminar room. So that is something that is set in stone. So again, just make sure on that first page you're selecting the right type of room or content that you want to associate. But the type of content itself, whether it's within the same license, can be changed. So you can switch meeting room to meeting room, but you can't switch licenses after the fact. So we'll go and select the radio button here, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom of this page and click next. Now the next thing that it's going to have us do is it's going to have us create registration questions. Now the system gives us these default ones right here, and we can actually pick and choose if we just want to ask some pretty generic ones. The hey, who are you? The how do I get in contact with you after our event has finished. Now the only ones it's going to need selected here are going to be email address, password, retype password or password verification, and then name. Now, if we deselected the register without a password, these two would actually not be selected. These two would be unselected within this list. However, we have that enabled for this tutorial, so that is why these are selected here. But let's say I don't want any of these besides company name. I want to know where most of my registrants are coming from and what company they associate with. So I'll go ahead and select that right there. Now, I want to create my own custom registration questions. The way that I would do that is, again, moving on to the next page. So if I click next, I'm going to be presented with a list of customizable questions that I can ask. Now I can see all of the previous questions that we had selected on the previous page listed out right here, and we'll get into what we can do with them in just a few moments. But I do want to draw your attention up here to the top. We have 3 buttons at the very top, one called New Multiple Choice, one called New Short Answer, and one called New Yes or No, or True False. Again, it's interchangeable on how you want to use it. Now, if I want to create one of these, all I simply need to do is click on one of them and start creating the question. I can write out a question, something as, have you attended a webinar with us before? And I can make this multiple choice, add below, and adding below or adding above allows you to add multiple different types of choices that you can select here. Yes. We'll go with the appropriate spelling here. Yes, no, and then let's go ahead, maybe, or unsure / unsure. Now, within this page, there's actually a whole bunch of other options that you have. I can have as many possible choices as I want within this list. There's actually no limitation to the number of responses that you can create for your users to choose from. If we are getting into the higher numbers of responses that you want people to choose from, there's actually a quicker way than adding it per line, which is this option right here called Select to Enable for this CSV. All I would need to do is I would need to write in those responses. Let's go ahead and write unsure here and put a comma after that. And I comma separate each of these values, and it then puts it into that list for me. So if I click Save here, that'll actually save as my responses for that question. And if I want to double check that, I can actually go and click on that particular question within this list and see those responses right here. Now, another thing I want to call out on this page is at the very bottom where it says response is required. A lot of the times with registration pages that you'll see, some of the questions are required, and if you don't fill them in, it won't allow your registration to go through or authenticate. And that's because you need to fill in that field to complete registration. If there's any information that you require from your users, this is something that you're going to want to have selected. So if you click yes, what will happen now after I hit save is you'll now notice there's a little red asterisk next to this question indicating that this is now a required response from my users. Now, if I click back on the company name that we picked on the previous page, I'll be able to see that I still have that same response. And there's actually another option up here under validation type. When you have responses that are more fill-in-the-blank type questions or short response type questions, and if you're asking for a particular format of a response, you can actually choose the validation type right here. So for those questions, if I'm looking for text, I can just set it as plain text. If I'm looking for a set of numbers, I can actually have it be numbers, so if you don't fill it in with numbers, you can't authenticate. I can have it authenticate through an email address, phone number, or a URL. So if there's a particular response, since it's a company name, we'll just leave it at text here. I can go ahead and select that validation type and always make this a required response or not. But we'll go ahead and hit save down here at the bottom and add that over. Now that'll be the same as if I click short answer up here at the top as well. I can create a short answer response and then go through and choose the validation type for that additional question. Now the last one is just yes or no, and it's again just a true-false question. Did you like the previous webinar? Yes or no, and again you can ask those types of questions here. There's no restriction on the number of registration questions that you can ask within an event inside of Adobe Connect. The only thing and best practice that I will let you know from personal experience is if you ask a lot of questions and you ask a lot of required questions, that'll tend to turn some people away. They might get tired of filling that out, or they just might not want to fill out something as lengthy to attend your webinar. So again, this is something where I pick and choose the most important questions, and then even further pick and choose the most important questions that I'm going to make required for the data I'm going to collect afterwards. In a future video, we'll actually discuss how the reporting side of this all works together and how you can pull those reports. Again, a little teaser, something you guys can stay tuned for. Now, once we have all of our registration questions created here, I can go ahead and click Next down here at the bottom. What it's taking me to next is a participant management page. Now, this will allow me to upload a list of users that I want to initially invite to the event. And that's what all of these buttons across the top are going to allow me to do. Now, if we just start left to right here, if we click on Add Guest, what Add Guest gives me is it gives me a field in which all I need to do is put in a person's email address. Let's just do bob@bob.com. Hopefully I've never run into a Bob or bob.com because he's going to get a lot of emails from me. And then all I do is put a comma in after that and then add any additional emails that I want. Very similar to the registration question that we added in earlier through the CSV file field, this is the exact same thing. If all you have is a list of email addresses, you can upload them into the system like this, so once you publish everything out, everyone is going to get a copy of that invitation to your event. So I went ahead and I added Bob to that particular event, and now I'll see once I clicked save at the bottom, I now have him listed out here as an invited attendee. Now I can go through and I can click on users and groups as well, and what this will do is will pull from the list of people that I have inside of my Adobe Connect system. So with these two lists that you see over here, the list on the left is all of my available Connect users. Now this would be a great way for me to invite a bunch of internal people if this was more of an internal training or an internal webinar. However, something that we can do as we build a lot of these events is if you change the setting on that first page where we have people either register as full guests or full Connect users. If they are registering as full Connect users, their names go into this list on the left hand side. So if you want to re-invite them to multiple events, this is a great way where you can quickly add them from your system instead of constantly inviting them every single time and creating themselves as a guest. Now, this is just a quick way that you can do it. I'll go through the process in adding someone over this way because it is very quick and very easy. Simply go down here to the bottom under the search field, search that user's name. I'm going to go ahead and find Eric, my colleague here. I can then, let's be a little bit more specific here. There we go. We've got a bunch of Eric Crawfords here. I'm going to go ahead and select this first one and then click add down here in the bottom and then add him over. So let's go ahead and click add him over, and now he's also invited to this event. Now I'll click OK here, and I'll get confirmation of that down here at the very bottom of this page that Eric is also now invited to this event. The final one that I want to talk about right now, we'll get into registration groups in a future video, but the final one I want to talk about is importing, exporting lists. Now this, like anything else inside of Adobe Connect, is a way where I can upload a CSV file. It's just an Excel file saved as a CSV. And once I upload that list of users, they'll be added to my event. I can simply go to upload, grab that CSV, and then load it into the system. If you're curious on how to format a CSV for Adobe Connect, we do have a video on our page that walks you through the entire setup process of creating a CSV file for Adobe Connect. Now, one thing that I like to point out as a best practice for people that have been doing this for a while is also on this page, you have an export list. So you can also go to another previously run event and click export. Download that list and use that same exact list either as a template and add additional people to it to upload to another event that you're running. So one, it's another great way to get a quick preview and a template of a CSV file that you can utilize, or it's just another quick and easy way where you can get people out of an old event and add them to a new event that you want to invite them to. So that is pretty much how easy it is to upload people into the system to invite them to the event. All these people are going to receive an initial invitation that's going to inform them, hey, we have an event going on, you might want to register for it, which is what we're going to get into on the next page. So if you do click next down here at the bottom, it takes you to your email options. Now, that's it for part 2. I know email options is going to be a lengthy conversation, so I do want to keep these videos slightly shorter than the first one that we built here. So guys, stay tuned for part 3. We'll go in depth into the email options and all the different emails and settings that you can implement to remind your users to attend your webinar. Stay tuned for part 3. Take care, guys, and have a great rest of your day.